The team is back together for another year with Rowan, True Blue, Dinky Di, You Butte, Dean, James, always was, always will be, Morrow. And I'm Rita Panahi. Now, I'm sure, like me, you are thoroughly sick and tired of the annual self-flagellation unleashed by the media, celebrity, academia and activist class, and increasingly the corporate sector. Good morning, Brad. The Woolies boss. Do you know how much he gets paid? $8.5 million last year. $8.5 million. This divisive, race-based self-loathing, it's ugly, it's destructive, and mostly based on lies, just like the lies we heard during the left's failed push for the race-based voice. And yes, it's exactly the same miserable, reality-denying miscreants that push the voice who are again pushing the Invasion Day narrative. The same corporates, the same sporting bodies and celebs and politicians who are all on the wrong side of history, but instead of accepting the referendum result, they're doubling down on this agenda. We have AFL clubs rubbishing Australia Day. The NRL put out this daft statement. Said the NRL acknowledges that today represents a painful and sorrowful day for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. I'm sorry, does the NRL think that every Indigenous person in this country feels the same? That there's some homogenous group incapable of independent thought? The best thing about that NRL statement was all the league fans who posted Happy Australia Day messages under the announcement. It says plenty, though, about the ideological capture at these institutions, that they are reckless enough to give the majority of their fans, the majority of Australians, the big finger, all for a little incoherent virtue signalling. Take the woke hypocrites at Tennis Australia, who didn't celebrate Australia Day at the Australian Open, but they did devote 2 days to an LGBTQIAA+ extravaganza.
Melbourne Park glowing with pride. Rainbow flags, sequins and colour as far as the eye could see, as Pride Day was celebrated for the third year.
What's today all about?
Oh my gosh, today is all about colour, it's about fun, it's about visibility, representation and pride.
Yes, Tennis Australia really cares about the LGBT community, except it has for the 10th straight year partnered with Emirates. That would be the airline owned by the government of Dubai, of the United Arab Emirates, where homosexuality is considered a crime, punishable by imprisonment, beatings, chemical castration and even death under Sharia law. Yes, sadly, we've come to expect hypocrisy and idiocy from our leading sporting codes. But one would have hoped that after the nation went to a referendum on this agenda, that there'd be some awakening. But the left never concede defeat. They just doubled down with lies and emotional blackmail. And one of the biggest lies told about Australia Day is that January 26 marks invasion. And if we change the date, then all the enraged anti-Australia Day activists would be appeased and they'd join in celebrating our National Day. If you believe that, then you are a naive fool and you're part of the problem. Firstly, there was no invasion in any sense of the word on January 26. The first of the First Fleet ships arrived at Botany Bay on January 18. The remaining ships arrived on the following 2 days. January 26 marks the day when they raised the Union Jack flag a little further north at Sydney Cove. But it's never been about the date. It's about opposing any celebration of modern Australia, of all we've achieved thanks to Western civilisation.
I'm marching for land back and to end the colony.
No pride in celebrating genocide.
We just got to educate those who say, just get over it. It's just, well, no, we just come to celebrate our own sovereignty.
Demonstrators dominated city streets for almost 5 hours, emboldened by Free Palestine protesters who joined in.
We're definitely coming out here in support of our brothers and sisters.
That was Melbourne, where lefty loons have destroyed a historic Captain Cook statue. They lopped off the 110-year-old bronze statue at the ankles and also wrote, "The colony will fall," in red paint on the memorial base. Now, why did they target a Captain Cook monument on the eve of Australia Day? The man was already dead when the First Fleet arrived in Australia, but the activist class is not too concerned with historical facts. They only want to destroy and oppose. And there's a real fear that good, well-meaning people who love this country and support Australia Day will be bullied into submission, convinced that the ugly divisiveness unleashed every single year will end if only we change the date. But trying to appease leftist activists is how we got into this current mess. It's what they count on to advance their culture war. The time for appeasement is over. It's time the majority of Australians push back for our shared values. Stop pandering to the perpetually aggrieved activists. Jacinta Nampijinpa-Price nailed it with a proposal to enshrine Australia Day on January 26 in legislation. And let's start focusing on the consequential issues afflicting Indigenous communities, the deplorable rates of abuse and neglect, the terrible outcomes despite the billions spent every year. You can be sure that the activists, celebrities and sporting bodies bleating loudest about Australia Day won't bother taking a stand on those issues.